Good morning. The September 4th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. As the board continues to meet in this hybrid fashion, we'll ask everyone who's joining us today in person to ensure that your electronic devices are turned off or at a minimum placed in silent so you do not disrupt today's proceedings. At this time, I will call on and also for folks that will participating with us today virtually, when it's time for your item to be heard, you will be called out by the board. And at that time, we ask that you state your name, organization you're calling in from, and then speak clearly with your testimony. At this time, I'll turn it over to our amazing clerk, Ms. Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, or noted abstentions to today's agenda. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. We have the following corrections to note to today's agenda. For SB 24-13109, Department of Housing and Community Development, payment in lieu of taxes for Walker Muse LP, 6225 York Road, Block 5121, Lot 004. Under the header Employee Baltimore, we are striking applicable and inserting not applicable. And for SB 24-12974, this is from the Law Department, a settlement agreement and release with Mary Pat Starin. We, under the amount and source of funds, please strike the transaction amount $51,141.75 and insert the corrected number $51,116.75. We have the following walk-ons this morning. SB 24-13289, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, FY25 General Funds Agreement between the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services and the Time Organization Incorporated for $2,246,312. Pardon me. Let me share some details regarding that transaction. This is, again, SB 13289. The action requested of the board is to approve a subrecipient grant agreement with the Time Organization. The period of this agreement is from July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. And again, the dollar amount is $2,246,312. The city has allocated certain general funds to the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services to assist providers in the coordination of emergency services to the homeless population of Baltimore City. The Provider Time Organization will operate an emergency homeless shelter with 145 beds for women experiencing homelessness in the city of Baltimore. We have a walk-on SB 24-13308. This is for the Baltimore City Health Department. It is a provider agreement with the University of Maryland for $227,125. The period of this agreement is from March 1, 2024 to February 28, 2025. And the goal of this collaborative agreement between the City Health Department and University of Maryland STAR track is to identify and address barriers to care needed to achieve viral suppression and improve retention to care in youth and young adults of the Baltimore EMA. We also have walk-on SB 24-13309 for the Baltimore City Health Department. This is a provider agreement with the University of Maryland for $687,875. The period of this agreement is from March 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. And this is also a collaborative agreement between the Baltimore City Department of Health and the University of Maryland STAR track to identify and address barriers to care needed to achieve viral suppression and improve retention to care in youth and young adults of the Baltimore EMA. And we have SB 24-13352, Baltimore City Health Department. This is a provider agreement with the Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing for $1,367,178. The period of this agreement is from March 1st, 2024 to February 28th, 2025. The Center for Infectious Disease and Nursing Innovation continues its technical assistance with the Getting to Zero Plus program and its systemic approach. Fifth year, the program will continue with Chase Brexton as the performance site and continue functioning as the virtual as the virtual site, including all transfers from New Vision House of Hope and transfers from current GTZ sites to other locations where there is not a GTZ navigator. Mr. President, I know that there is someone from Health Department joining us this morning to further explain those walk-ons, if helpful. We also have a deferral to note this morning. We're deferring item SB 24-13359. This was an item submitted by the Mayor's Office for the Design and Development Agreement for Baltimore City Public Safety Complex at 401, 501, and 601 North Calvert Street. The transaction amount was $8,788,130.00, and this was deferred until October 2nd at the request of the Council President. We have the following withdrawals to note this morning. SB 24-12418 for Fire and Police Employee Retirement Systems, lease agreement for 100 Light Street. This has been withdrawn at the request of the agency. We're also withdrawing SB 24-13095 for the Department of Transportation. This was an emergency procurement report for Gray Bar, INS Tent, and Sherwin-Williams Paints for $133,360.59. This item was withdrawn at the request of the agency. And item SCPROCUR 9900010303. This was for Gartner for IT executives. This item was withdrawn at the request of the clerk, me, and I would just like to take an opportunity to explain to folks, when you see a very strange SB number like that, these are historic documents that we have been scanning into our system to fuel our publicly accessible database that will be going live very, very soon, we hope. And those documents date back to 2010, and every once in a while the system grabs one of them and pulls it onto the current agenda. And that is why we're withdrawing it this morning. But also want to take the opportunity to plug that our system is about to enable folks to see documents all the way back to 2010, highly searchable, and a public-facing side of our database. We have the following protest statements of opposition and/or statements of support this morning. None to report. And now I'm going to list the following non-routine agenda items. On the non-routine agenda this morning, we have SB 24-12974, Law Department Settlement Agreement and Release for Mary Pat Starrin for $51,151.75. We have SB 24-12663, Bureau of Procurement. This is an unauthorized procurement for One Team LLC for $50,120. SB 24-13144, Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement for Broadway Services for $4,064. SB 24-13115, Bureau of Procurement, unauthorized procurement, Capital Lighting and Supply, doing business as Capital Electric for $13,735.12. SB 24-13210, Bureau of Procurement. This is an extension for Contract B 5000-4496, Auditor Financial Services. The transaction amount is $705,125. SB 24-13246 for the Department of Public Works, emergency procurement for inlet heads, Bel Air Road Supply for $1 million. SB 24-13335, Department of Transportation, e-bike incentive grant agreement with Trek Retail Corporation for $75,000. SB 24-12368 for the Department of Public Works, extra work order 3 for contract WC 1204, Druid Lake finished water tanks for $3,750,868.15. SB 24-13109 for the Department of Housing and Community Development. This is a payment in lieu of taxes for Walker Muse Housing LP at 6225 York Road, 21212. This is Block 550, Lot 004, and there is a $0 transaction amount. SB 24-13289 for the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services, FY25 General Funds Agreement with the Time Organization for $2,246,312. SB 24-13308 for the Baltimore City Health Department Provider Agreement with University of Maryland for $227,125. SB 24-13309, Baltimore City Health Department. This is a provider agreement with University of Maryland for $687,875. And SB 241335 Baltimore City Health Department provider agreement with the Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing for $1,365,178. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott has no abstentions. The Honorable President Nick Mosby has no abstentions. Deputy Comptroller Erica McClammy has no abstentions. City Solicitor Ebony Thompson has no abstentions. And the Director of Public Works, Khalil Zaid, has abstentions on the following items. SB 241335, DPW, Final Housing Allowance, and SB 241342, Department of Real Estate, Second Renewal Lease Agreement for 751 Eastern Avenue. We also have the following no votes on routine agenda items to note on behalf of the Honorable President Nick Mosby. The President is voting no on the following transactions. SB 241239, Grant Agreement, Housing Accelerator ARPA, HCH Real Estate Company Incorporated. SB 241265, ARPA, Subrecipient Grant, Keswick Multi-Care Center. SB 241262, ARPA Subrecipient Grant, Rebuilding Together Baltimore. SB 241266, ARPA Subrecipient Grant, Banner Neighborhoods Community. SB 241277, Subgrant Agreement, Rebuild Metro, Rebuild Johnston Square Phase 1 LLC. SB 241260, ARPA Subrecipient Grant, Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. SB 241261, Subgrant Agreement, Civic Works Incorporated. SB 241263, ARPA Subrecipient Grant, Comprehensive Housing Assistance Incorporated. SB 241250, Subgrant Agreement with Trev Coop 3 LLC, FY24. SB 241283, Grant Agreement, Housing Accelerator, ARPA, Harford House LP. SB 24131058, Amendment 1, Grant Agreement with Downtown Partnership of Baltimore Incorporated. SB 241359, Amendment 1, Grant Agreement, Baltimore Urban League Incorporated. SB 2412917, Agreement between the Mayor's Office of Homeless Services and the Time Organization Incorporated. SB 241212, Grant Agreement, 300 Block North Gilmore, LLC. SB 2412134, Grant Agreement, Ryan Investments, LLC. SB 2412127, Grant Agreement, 200 East Biddle Street, LLC. SB 2412095, Grant Agreement, 1172 Washington Boulevard, LLC. SB 2412128, Grant Agreement with Baltimore Redlining and Blight Elimination Community Development Corporation. SB 2412538, Emergency Procurement Application, Northeast Energy Services, BMC Mechanical, Civic Works, and Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. SB 2412540, Emergency Procurement Application, Northeast Energy Services, and BMC Mechanical. SB 2412404, Second Amendment to Interagency Agreement between Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs and Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement for ARPA Grant 442207. SB 2412588, Second Amendment Sole Source Agreement with Clear Channel Outdoor for advertisement of the city's Be More Connected campaign. SB 2412599, Second Extension and Increase to Contract B504091, Computer Desktops, Laptops, and Tablets. SB 2412349, Department of Housing Fixed Pricing Policy, August 2024. And SB 2412473, Department of Housing Grant Agreement, ARPA, Housing Accelerator, NHP Foundation. And Mr. President, that concludes our opening statement for this morning.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I will call on a motion to approve the opening statement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The opening statement has now been adopted. I now would like to direct the board's attention to a memorandum from my office dated on September 3rd, 2024. Identify matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been read by our clerk this morning. I'll entertain a motion to approve all items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has now been adopted. The first item on non-routine agenda can be found on pages 42 and 43, SB 2413-109, Department of Housing Community Development. This request is to approve a pilot agreement with Walker Muse Housing. This is an item that was originally on the last agenda that I asked for a deferral. I asked for a deferral this time. Unfortunately, the board did not see fit to defer at this time. So on behalf of DHCD, we have.
Mr. President.
Please turn on the mic. The right button. Yeah.
Morning, Mr. President, member of the boards. My name is Theo Ngongong. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Baltimore City Department of Housing and Community Development. And I'm here with Lori Glass, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Project Finance. And she's been the one leading the efforts on this pilot project. Lori.
Thank you. Good morning. Also with me is Bob Sinemy with Department of Finance. Good morning, Mayor Scott, Council President Mosby, and other members of the BOE. Pleased to be able to present our recommendation for approval of a pilot agreement for the Walker Muse project. The Walker Muse project is an affordable housing project. It has 167 units of affordable housing for seniors 62 and over. The organization's contract for income restrictions expires in 2 years. If not for this refinance and the extension of the affordable housing contract with HUD, these units are at risk of being lost to market rate units. On behalf of the Commissioner, Alice Kennedy, who couldn't be with us today, DHCD feels that preservation of affordable units is most important for us in the city. We spend a lot of money on new construction, and we're always happy to see new units come into the market. But preservation of existing units is super important. And that's the compelling reason that we recommend this pilot for approval. Related Company has a track record nationwide of affordable housing unit preservation. The industry overall, this is how they rehab buildings. This building has not had major substantial improvements since 2007. It's hard to run and manage an affordable housing project. Doesn't throw off a lot of cash. It's often at the time of refinancing that substantial rehab is done to the units. This developer is proposing to invest over $32,000 per unit to do substantial rehab, including kitchen appliances, kitchen cabinets, new flooring, new cabinets in the bathroom, new toilets, sinks, repairing the windows. So this is not what we consider cosmetic. We consider this substantial rehab. The commissioner and I did put together several bullet points that I'd like to share with you regarding the deferral and the need to move quickly. We have aggressively been working with the developer to move forward with the pilot. The actual pilot agreement was signed and negotiated with our attorney on the 19th of July. And we were able to put this on the agenda initially for 8/21. However, it was deferred. Right now, the organization is in the final negotiating phases for the overall financing, which includes the state of Maryland, Fannie Mae, and several other financing entities. The pilot agreement is one of the key items that needs to be presented to CDA so that they can actually schedule a closing date. The organization has existing debt on the project that matures October 1st, 2024. This refinancing will pay off that debt and extend new debt for the project. So that's the urgency of having it approved or acted on today. As I mentioned, the property is for seniors 62 and older, and the seniors in this building will pay no more than 30% of their income for rent. The property was built in 1980. It was most recently renovated in 2008. And it did not require any city funding for that rehab that was done. The property has a nonprofit affiliate. The affiliate does provide substantial services to residents, including resident services personnel to support the needs of the elderly population. The recapitalization of the building includes the total development cost is $45 million. $21 million of that is the purchase price. $13 million is for the capital improvements. As part of the renovation, as I mentioned, there will be substantial in-unit renovations as well. Improvements will be made to make sure the property is fully compliant with UFAS and ADA requirements. There will be, in the common units or the common area, there will be addition of handrails in the hallways, repairs to the concrete and sidewalk, new community-wide Wi-Fi, pendants for residents to wear around their necks so that they can identify and notify management if there's a fall. The other ideas or the other improvements with regards to the services would be that they have engaged a healthcare organization, RCM Healthcare Services, to support and staff a new full-time resident coordinator and a part-time wellness nurse. And this nurse will be available to residents without charge. They have a well-planned relocation plan. Residents will be relocated in hotels while work is done in their units. They will return to the units that they're in. I mentioned that Bob Sinemy is here as well. DHCD works hand in hand with Department of Finance to manage the pilot program and to approve pilot requests. Without this pilot agreement, the but-for is that the organization would not have sufficient debt capacity to pay for some of these rehab elements that I just mentioned. The proposed pilot would yield savings to the organization that would allow them to increase. So In closing, with the potential reassessment once the property is improved, the organization Without a Pilot believes that its taxes will be in the neighborhood of $495,000. The proposed pilot, based on the rental income, is $321,000, and the savings from that pilot on an annual basis are at $173,000. I did want to note that currently taxes on the property for the most recent year were $263,000. So with this pilot at 311, we're actually, we're not decreasing taxes immediately. There is the great part of additional investment that is being provided to the city for affordable housing, and we're wholly supportive of the project. I'd invite Bob Sinema to make comments. Thank you. I'll just do this.
Thank you, Lori. Good morning, members of the board. Bob Sinema, Department of Finance. If you'll allow me to just pull up my notes to give you the precise numbers on this. So as Lori mentioned, there's a refinancing as part of this transaction, and the pilot amount that we're proposing is $311,947. Without the pilot, as Lori mentioned, it would be about $495,000. The dynamic here is that without the pilot, because this property would not generate enough income, it's a really razor-thin margin, the amount of cash versus the debt service payment. So without the pilot, the debt service coverage ratio is only 1.08. And so what the pilot does is it reduces the taxes just enough that it creates a little bit of a cushion, creates a little bit more cash flow, and that gives the lender, that satisfies the lender that they can have the assurance that they will be repaid. As Lori mentioned, the tax payments will actually be more than they are today. The property is assessed at about $11.2 million today, about $263,000 of taxes, and then again going forward it would be $311,000. So it's not the full rate, but it's actually more than we have today. And as Lori mentioned, it allows us to maintain these units at an affordable level. So financially, that's the dynamic. The lender just wants more than just a razor-thin margin to ensure they get paid. They present to us the financials, and we go through the assumptions with HCD and them. And again, those are just projections, so they just want a little bit more coverage, a little bit more cash flow to ensure that if something goes wrong or some of the assumptions don't turn out, that they will be repaid. And if we don't get the loan, developer can't get the loan, we can't do the project. So that's the test that we do. And again, happy to answer HCD or finance, happy to answer any other questions.
Just real quick, if you could, if you extrapolate out the pilot savings per year, what's the total amount of the pilot?
Well, the annual payment is $311,000. Each year, the property owner has to submit all the documentation, so that number can change a little bit per year. And this is indefinite as long as the property is used for affordable housing.
Oh, so it's not locked in for 40 years?
I believe it was I think it was indefinite.
This is an indefinite pilot?
So the pilot, and I think I would say most of the pilots that we have on our books do not have an expiration date. So
But as far as the time that they have the affordable
Right,
credit is for 40 years.
exactly,
I mean, I
exactly.
kind of look at that as a rider on that.
Okay.
We don't, as a city, we don't look at it that way.
Uh,
So basically, if they no longer have it, they'll still keep the pilot. I thought the pilot is in lieu of them having it as affordable.
As long as it's used for the purpose, affordable units.
So that's why I was asking how long this pilot is. So basically, that's like 40 years. Is that right?
yes,
All right. So we would take the savings of, I guess, 173,000 and multiply that times just easy maths,
Yeah,
40,
by 40.
and that would come up to about $7 million, right? That's what we're kind of talking about, just looking at it from an easy math perspective.
Yeah, and we would.
no. It's not, I don't think we can analyze it that way because we're actually looking at the present value
Yeah.
of those payments over time. So if we look at that savings of 183,000 over, like, if we receive it every year for the next 40 years, the present value is at 2.8 million. So it's not really, you know,
I'm not sure.
you
I
have to take into account that a dollar received today
Yeah,
is not the same as a dollar received 20 years from now.
correct.
So with doing this present value calculation, we look at the 183 each year for 40 years,
Okay.
and the value of the pilot will be 2.8 million.
So present day value, you're saying it's about $3
Exactly.
million.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the number we want to get at. Now, the 32,000 per unit, how is that guaranteed? Like, is there some contract between the city? I mean, I only say this because, and I know you said, and maybe there's information that you have that I don't have. You said that there was a significant renovation done in 2007 or 2008.
Right.
From what we've been able to gather, it was not significant. They did do some cosmetic stuff, but I think this was built in 1980, and there really hasn't been any significant renovation to this
Right.
building since 1980. So I know that there's an agreement that they're going to do 32,000 per unit this time around. I believe it's like 400 and some units there. How
No, 166 units.
166 units.
Right.
So the math is not. I'll get back to the math. But regarding the 32,000, how is that guaranteed to us to make sure that?
Right.
happens?
So, as part of the refinancing, one of the requirements is that the organization enter into an agreement with a general contractor at closing. And so, based on the contractor's bid, we actually had them identify all of the elements that were elements going inside the units. So this contractor's agreement that's signed at closing is one of the things to present it to determine the scope of work. And so we can be assured that the scope of work that's included in the general contractor's agreement and signed at closing is the legitimate costs that are being invested, and they're done on a line item basis.
Gotcha.
So that's how we,
So this makes that's why this pilot agreement is different than the one on Pennsylvania Avenue,
absolutely,
because that was just
absolutely,
got it.
yeah.
Understood. And you said it's 176 units?
100 and, so it's 167 units. One unit is set aside for management,
Okay.
so it leaves 166 units.
Now, I guess the confusion is, earlier, I believe you said $13 million was to go specifically to the renovation of the units?
Right, the value of the GC contract, hard construction costs, is 13 million. Of
Yeah.
that 13 million, 32 times 166 going inside the unit, and then remainder would be for common area improvements.
Okay, yeah. So I divided the 32 into the 13 million.
Yeah.
That's how I got the number.
I
units.
did
Got
too
it.
at first.
Got it.
Which is why I went back and asked them to specifically identify each element in the scope of work that was going inside the unit, because I know that's something that you've been concerned about.
Yes.
So we wanted to make sure we had that dollar amount.
Thank you. And then as far as any code violations or citations, do you know of any on this particular property?
I'm not aware of any, and the project would not be able to move to closing without standing violations.
Yeah, not that there was wouldn't clean up before closing. Just kind of, I guess the general upkeep and the general responsiveness of this company and their management company to seniors who are at 60% AMI or below.
Right.
You know, obviously this is a problem throughout our entire city. This is why I
Absolutely.
speak up on these pilot agreements.
Yeah.
I appreciate DHCDs. I think that this is probably kind of one of the first that we've had throughout this term where we've seen significant kind of information that is locked in during closing. That's why I think that it's important for us to kind of go through, unfortunately, this excruciating type of dialogue. But, we can no longer allow, for business reasons and ensuring that deals pencil out, to do these pilot agreements anymore, right? And I appreciate the work that was done and on this particular one. But I would ask and I would challenge the board that this is in vast difference to what we've seen come through this board over the past couple of years as it relates to pilot agreements. I appreciate the board for taking a tour with me on Pennsylvania Avenue, when we were about to provide that pilot agreement and looking at the living conditions of individuals that would literally be stuck there for another 40 years. And this is our opportunity not to just preserve units, because no one, as it relates to an affordable housing perspective, cares about preserving units that are subpar. But it's really about preserving units where folks have the dignity to live and rest and play in conditions that we all would find fit for human beings. And too many times we agree to these pilots without ever stepping foot on some of the facilities in which we're agreeing to provide advantageous ways for folks to pencil out deals and refinance, or in the case of Pennsylvania Avenue, sell. So again, I appreciate the work and the information that's been brought before this board today. I ask that this is the type of excruciating work that we do moving forward, particularly as it relates to these pilot agreements. With that, I do not have any additional questions or concerns. Are there any from the board? Hearing and seeing none at this time, I'll take a vote.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
to the board. Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
so
Chair.
much. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on 122 SB 2412974, Law Department. This request is to approve a settlement agreement and release with Mary Pat Stram. On behalf of the Law Department, we have
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Stephen Salisbury, Deputy City Solicitor. Mr. Council President, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, the Law Department is here to recommend a settlement agreement related to a car that was mistakenly auctioned off last year. For background, BPD seized a car in September of 2022 as evidence in connection with a homicide. The owner of that vehicle was the suspect's mother. The car was sent from BPD to the city's tow yard, and shortly thereafter, BPD informed the tow yard that the vehicle should be put on an evidentiary hold, meaning not auctioned off, held for evidence. This ended up being a key part of the breakdown in communication between BPD and DOT, as when the vehicle was first turned over to DOT, it wasn't on a hold. It was only later added to a hold. In the interim, the owner actually received a letter to come and pick up the car, only to learn when she arrived to get the car that it had been placed on a hold, causing some of the confusion. However, nearly a year later, BPD informed DOT that the hold could be released. And while the circumstances around this are not entirely clear, it appears that part of the confusion was that there was not clear documentation in BPD of the fact that the hold should be in place. DOT then auctioned off the vehicle. Now, ordinarily, DOT would send a letter out to anyone appearing in a title or a lien search for the vehicle. However, because DOT had sent that initial letter out when they first received the car, no follow-up communication was made with the vehicle's owner. The vehicle was thus auctioned off without notifying the owner. The city recovered $22,000 in the auction. Shortly thereafter, the owner learned of this and filed a claim with the Law Department. The Law Department, thus giving the Law Department the recommendation for the settlement of $51,000, which is the value of the car, including all the remaining payments on the loan, which the owner was continuing to make while the car was sitting in the tow yard. In addition to the settlement, the law department has convened meetings with DOT and BPD to address, what are we doing to make sure this doesn't happen again? To better understand sort of what led to this communication breakdown and ensure that other remedial measures are put in place to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Moving forward, BPD's traffic division at the city yard will no longer allow detectives to call for vehicle hold and release evidentiary holds or release of evidentiary holds. They will need to put those requests in writing. BPD has actually created a form that detectives will need to fill out to submit those anytime a vehicle is going to be put on hold or released from hold with an explanation around that. They'll also be maintaining that list so that anytime DOT is auctioning off a car, they'll be able to check it against this list. That documentation piece was one of the issues that we think led to the miscommunication here. Additionally, on DOT's side, prior to auctioning off any vehicle, DOT will confirm that notice has been sent to the owner. This will require an additional check if DOT's system shows that the hold status has been updated at any time that the vehicle was in DOT's possession. And if so, a new notification will go out, even if a year earlier a notification had gone out. And this is to address that situation that, just because maybe the owner got a letter when the car was first brought to the tow yard, if it's been sitting there for a year, there's going to be another letter that goes out to ensure that the owner has notice of that. BPD and DOT are here if the board has additional questions about these remedial measures. And otherwise, again, the law department is recommending a settlement in the amount of $51,116.75.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Solicitor. The 51K is more built into there than other than, I guess, the payments and the value of the car?
Yeah, so it's when the car was a brand new car that was bought in 2022. And I think the original value was probably closer to 30K. But the problem was it was the value of all of the future payments and the interest on those payments. In addition to, keep in mind the owner was paying car insurance the time that it was in the lot. So all of those were getting built into the settlement amount.
And anything for time and suffering?
So the original damages were higher than the original claim damages were higher than that amount. That was the settlement agreement that the parties agreed to that factored in all the payments for the car and insurance and ultimately what the parties agreed to.
Okay, thank you so much. At this time, are there any other questions from Madam Deputy Comptroller?
Okay. I do have two questions. You mentioned that DOT was one of the changes was that they were going to look and review and make sure that notification was sent to the owner. How is that different than what may have happened before in terms of notification to the owner?
So with all of our vehicles that come in, we have an electronic system that manages a lot of the notifications and everything. And so in this case, like you said, when the vehicle first came in, it didn't come in under and hold. So when it came in the system, basically the system recognizes there's a coding system. So it recognizes on the lot and it sends the notification to the owner. At that point, notification went out. There was actually a process where with the owner, they got a notification, they were paying the fee and was in the process of trying to come pick their vehicle. But in that interim, that's when the hold got put on. And so what happens in the system is that once the hold got put on, the code changed. Mm-hmm. And so the system didn't really recognize that there's now a new code. And so then once the hold got lifted, at that point, the system didn't recognize that because the code changed, we now need to send a new letter out. And so what we're doing right now is we've pulled to see whatever vehicles we have that are currently on hold, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to reconcile and then essentially manually send out letters for any of those hold vehicles. Concurrently, we've now started working with BSIT, and we're going to work on our system to see if there's a way to incorporate a fail-safe in the system so that anytime those code changes, if there's a way for it to just automatically send out another letter as well. But until we get to that point, then we're going to have more of a manual process built in. So we're not talking about every single vehicle that's in our tow yard. It's only those number of vehicles that are in that whole type of scenario. So this is just one of those unique scenarios that came about because of the dynamics of this scenario.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And one final question, the funding for the settlement, is that coming from the law settlement fund or from the towing fund?
It's coming from the Law Settlement Fund.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Matt, Deputy Comptroller. Are there any other questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none at this time, we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much, Deputy Solicitor. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on page 177, SB 2412663, Office of Procurement on behalf of Rec and Parks. This request is to approve an unauthorized procurement with One Team LLC. On behalf of the city, we have
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Mr. President, members of the board. Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. This is an unauthorized procurement for One Team for the amount of $50,120. This is for paying outstanding referee services for the Youth Basketball League for the January 23 through March 24 season. As we move forward, the Department of Parks and Recs did submit a requisition into the Workday system in October of 23 for these services, but due to staffing changes and other issues, it wasn't able to get through. The decision was made to continue this. We didn't want to interrupt the season as it was going forward. We have been working with Recs and Parks, and all of the contracts for upcoming seasons have been completed yesterday, thank goodness. And we've also put in some internal controls to make sure that this happened again, to give ourselves an extra time to get it done. So we're asking permission to pay the outstanding invoice.
Thank you for the cleanup. Is there any questions or concern, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I know we have this finally in. How long before you think it'll come before the board?
I'm sorry,
The
sir?
new contract, how long before you think it'll come before the board?
We should be getting that hopefully within the next couple of weeks or months.
Great.
Very quickly.
Because I don't want to be at the basketball games and have the referees threaten me. I don't coach anymore, so I don't need to be thrown out because they're not getting paid.
I will make sure that doesn't happen.
Any additional questions or concerns?
Yeah, you mentioned internal.
Madam Deputy Comptroller, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You mentioned internal controls. Can you expand a little bit more on that? What kind of internal controls are being put in place?
We've been working with Recs and Parks, going on weekly meetings to make sure that we can continue, that we're not falling behind on items, and we have items going forward with it. The Bureau of Procurement is actually doing this now with several of the larger departments, DPW, DGS, police, fire, to make sure that we're on top of these things and we're not falling behind. Additionally, we have 2 open positions. We're actually open now for 2 contract administrator 2s to help us make sure that we don't fall behind on these things. And I think that closes within a week, and then we can start doing interviews.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, it's time. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The item is approved. Thank you, Mr. CPO. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on page 178, SB 2413144, Office of Procurement on behalf of MOAD. This request is to approve an unauthorized procurement with Broadway Services LLC. On behalf of the city, we have
Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. Thank you, sir. This is a case of the cart getting before the horse. We were moving through to get everything taken care of for MOAD for this, and unfortunately, the services were done prior to issuing the purchase order, which then created the unauthorized procurement. So we're asking for permission to pay the invoice to the cleaning services for a total of $4,064 to Broadway Services, Inc.
at this time, Mr. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam. Do we know if the cart going before the horse was that the cleaning company just came in, or it's requested before we had?
I think it was requested before everything was completed.
Thank you.
At this time, are there any other questions or concern about this item? Hearing and seeing none, the board will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on page 179, SB 2413115, Office of Procurement on behalf of Rec and Parks. This request is to approve unauthorized procurement with Capital Lighting Supply, doing business as Capital Electric. On behalf of the city, we have
Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. This is an unauthorized procurement There was a BCRP thought that we had an open contract with Capital Electric for these materials when they were ordered. The contract had ended. They moved forward with it and received everything and the services prior to a new purchase order being done. We have rectified this. This board just at the last meeting approved SB 2413125 for these services. So we do now have a valid contract to move forward. We've been working with Rex and Park just to make sure that if there are questions that they reach out to make sure we can get it done correctly.
Thank you so much. At this time, are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, at this time, the board will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on pages 181 and 182, SB 2413210, Office Procurement on behalf of Department of Finance. This request is to approve a consultant and professional services agreement with SB and Company LLC on behalf of the city. We have
Adam Manning, your Chief Procurement Officer. I'm going to get my own seat up here soon. We're asking for permission to do a select source with SB and Company. They serve as the city's external auditor who conducts the audits of the city's basic financial statements. We're requesting a one-year extension for the period from June 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. The current contract expired back in May 31st of 24. This is to they provide essential services to finalize our fiscal year 23 audit and audit planning to start for fiscal year 24. A requisition has been entered to go out and do an RFP for this. Currently, the scope of work is being reviewed both by the accounting, BAPS, and the auditors to make sure that we have a true scope of work. We expect to issue the RFP in October and hopefully have then an award sometime after the new year.
Are there any questions or concerns for the board regarding this item?
I do have questions.
Madam Deputy Comptroller, the floor is yours.
You mentioned, thank you. You mentioned that the contract expired May 31st of this year. What would be the reason that it's taken almost 3 months to request an extension?
There was internal discussions whether to try and do it as an emergency extension and move forward, or if it would be cleaner to come before the board and ask for the select source extension, which is we felt was the correct way of doing it.
Okay.
So it just took a little time to get through, and as we were also working on the new RQ to make sure that things were lining up correctly.
And I'm not sure if you have this answer, but the board is still expecting the FY23 single audit. Do you know when that's expected to
I will
come to the
pass
board?
that to the Deputy Finance Director to answer.
Good morning, Ioana Mositas. Thank you, honorable members of the board. It should be within 2 weeks. So it's currently with the auditors, and the auditors have indicated that we should have a final result within 2 weeks.
Thanks.
Are there any additional questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on our routine agenda can be found on page 260, SB 2413246. Department of Public Works. This request is to approve emergency procurement with Bel Air Road Supply Company Incorporated. On behalf of the city, we have
I'm Paul Sain, Acting Bureau Head for the Bureau of Water and Wastewater. So this is a notification for an emergency authorization, $1 million to Bel Air Road Supply. This is to purchase stormwater inlets for our stormwater, or to purchase stormwater inlet heads for stormwater inlets. The previous contract was expired, and the request for solicitation is being processed now. That's under RQ 015337. It's being reviewed by Fiscal and BOP as we speak. And in June of 2024, DPW provided an updated inlet head details for this for that RFQ, which finalized all the paperwork to get that processed. Here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions or concerns?
I do have a question.
Madam Deputy Comptroller?
Sure. What caused the delay in the bidding process?
It was getting our updated inlet or details for that RFQ.
Okay, and can you state again what the current status is of the bidding?
It's being
process?
reviewed by fiscal and BOP as we speak.
Okay, so,
Mr. Mayor? Oh, same question. Any other questions or concerns? Mr. Mayor, just wanted it on the record. So I guess we just note that because it's a emergency.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item on non-routine can be found on pages 256 through 257, which is SB 2412368, Department of Public Works. This request is to approve extra work order 3 with Oscar Rinda Contracting for WC 1204 Druid Lake Finish Water Tanks. On behalf of DPW, we have
Yes, Timothy Wolf, Chief of the Office of Engineering and Construction. Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, and Board. Thank you. Yeah, this change order is related to the Druid Hill Tank project as we're nearing completion. This actually started back in 2017, so it's been a long-running project. So we're at 7 years. It was actually scheduled for about 4.5 years. But we hit a lot of challenges, COVID, rock, and actually this is related around putting the tanks in a portion of the Druid Lake itself. And the installation method proved to be very challenging. They changed their method a little bit. As opposed to sheeting, they went in and put in stone cofferdam and turbidity curtain. And when they put the turbidity curtain in, we had problems with turbidity because we have to keep the turbidity down to meet water quality standards. So there was multiple shutdowns to try to get that system to work, and as well as working with the city and operations. Eventually, after the third shutdown, during that period, it was requested that the lake be taken out of service, actually taken offline so they could go in and put in this stone dam quickly, as opposed to trying to work in the potable water system. The operations were very concerned about taking the lake off because of winter freeze, the water demand, things of that nature. So it took quite a while to make a decision to take the lake offline. And there was a concern that the valve that was needed to take the lake offline would not operate properly because it's very old. So there was a concern. But after an extended period of time and the operator making many attempts, and we telling the contractor to go ahead and do some pump and drain operations for the lake, it was decided to take the lake offline, and the lake was actually drained, the cofferdam put in, and backfilled. Now, the contractor asked $7.6 million for this change order, plus $1.4 million for interest. And I came in actually 4 years after this job had started and tried to resolve this issue. So we actually went back and forth and analyzed the change order, which is quite extensive, and see what's legitimately cost that was directed by the city that the contractor had to do to get this work done, and what was considered not something that the city's responsible for. So we, from the 7.6, we agreed to this $3.5 million change order, and this is what we're requesting today. To date, this is the only change order that's been requested, which is about 2.8% of the $134 million project. We're working with the contractor right now to close the job out towards the end of the year.
Thank you for that. You said it started in 2017?
Yes.
I would argue that point. I think it started much earlier, maybe like 2013, 2014.
Right.
This is me and Director Zaid. We have a lot of history with this particular project. If you can remember, if it wasn't for, I guess, the responsiveness of the city and creativity of DPW, led by an amazing director back then. The original plan was for this to be a chloration facility where tanks were going to have to come through Reservoir Hill once a week or once a month or something. Or the other idea was going to be to cap the lake, and it was going to take the aesthetic value or view of what it means to Druid Hill Park away. And it was under your direction and leadership that we went down this approach. So the community is definitely thankful. I don't think that we knew the generational impact of this project and what it would mean, not only to the residents that live right around the area, but to the city of Baltimore, and such a gem to us in Druid Hill Park. So we understand and know the importance of this. We also appreciate the complexity of what was designed back then and what you guys are looking to complete. Right now, because I know a lot of folks are really interested in this project, what's the expected time frame in which, all the trucks will leave and grass will start?
Well,
growing
what
again?
we're looking at now, actually, we're working on Druid Lake Park Drive right now.
Yeah.
We're going to finish our work in the next couple of weeks. DPW, DOT is coming in right behind us to do the rest of the paving and then handicap ramps, and that should be probably mid-October. We're looking at substantial completion by the end of the year.
Well, hopefully,
That's the plan. We have to do planning about 5,000
it is my wish as I ride my horse off in Sunset from public service for a project that started with me as a city councilman in that area, and my fight to get this done right, that I can ride off in my horse knowing that Druid Park Lake is done, and I can cut the ribbon with our amazing mayor here.
Right,
So
we'll
I'm
give you-
just going to put that on the record
We'll give you a first.
to DPW and to DOT, all right?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Tim, I just want you to note that I wasn't 30 when this project started. Now I'm 40. But I think that, Mr. President, I just want to make sure that we know that even when DPW and DOT finish their work, we're not done yet. I know he snuck out the back, but then it goes into the court of Director Moore and Rec and Parks for us to make this a actual, usable, livable a lake, and we're looking forward to that too. I think that will make it even more, Druid Hill Park, even more special, and especially for those who live in Reservoir Hill. I know the city solicitor, she's more concerned about the street being paved so that she takes that route to work every day and she can get back on 83 from Druid Hill Park Lake Drive. But I think we know this is one of the largest infrastructure projects in the country, and we know it's been through a lot, right? No one know that COVID was coming. You always, when you dig into something this old, you're going to find things. But I think the way that DOT and DPW, and specifically DPW, has been communicating with the community throughout is an example of how we should do that writ large. They might not have always been happy. My battery just died. But we know that they appreciated all the communication. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Meeting last night that was well attended, virtual, but
They're probably a little happy this time, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or concerns? Director Zaid, you have nothing to say here? This is kind of your baby?
It's great news. Just get it over with.
All right, no. And again, I can't say enough about your leadership and your responsiveness and your creativity, ingenuity to help design what we will be appreciating for decades to come. With that, are there any additional questions, concerns?
I just have one question.
You have a question, all right. Deputy Comptroller, the floor is yours.
So WC 1204 last appeared before the board on October 2023. That was SB 23-12005. In that, there was a request for partial release of retainage. The background of the memo stated that as of April 28, 2023, Oscar Render Contracting had completed 94% of the work. Is this extra work order to finish the final 6%?
Yes, actually, the closure of the project is.
You have to press, it turned on, sorry.
Is that good?
No, the right button.
Sorry.
There we go.
Okay, sorry. Yes, actually, they were near completion, getting the tanks under cover and putting them in service at the end of 23 was the magnitude of the project. The final closure of the project is taking quite a while to get to the end there. So you're right. And we actually worked with them it was a quite challenging closure at that period. And actually, Oscar Render came up, their leadership from Texas, and we're meeting to try to get to some closure and get some of the money to their sub-consultants. That's why we had that release of retainage. Thank you. Yes.
Any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The item is approved. Thank you. Thank you so much. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on pages 277 and 278, SB 2413335, Department of Transportation. This request is to approve an agreement with Trek Retain Corporation. On behalf of the city, we have...
Good morning, Director Kren Johnson. Hello, Honorable Board. Give me one moment to pull up this morning's presentation. Okay. All right, so before you today is specific of the grant agreement, but I want to take this opportunity to really give an overview of what the grant is for and the overall program. And so this is for an e-bike incentive pilot program. And so this is really an exciting opportunity here in Baltimore City for Baltimore City residents and in partnership with 3 particular Baltimore businesses. So BCDOT is administering a voucher pilot program where residents will apply for and receive vouchers where they can purchase e-bikes at approved vendors. We have a current budget of $75,000, which will accommodate up to 50 participants. There is a $750 limit for standard applicants, and we are allowing up to $2,000 for income qualified applicants, and 50% of the funds are reserved for those income qualified applicants. We did a previous little buzz about this earlier this summer, and we're going to be rolling out the program later this month. All right. So once the application period opens, at the time of application, you have to be a Baltimore City resident. You have to have a current driver's license or non-driver ID, something that's going to verify your residency. And then for those income qualified applicants, they have to be considered low income and have some type of proof, such as SNAP, Medicaid, or other enrollment to verify this. For the administration, the applications will all be completed online and housed on an e-bike incentive program page on our DOT website. DOT, both the team that is before me, and forgive me, I actually did not introduce them. So Deputy Director Stu Sirota and our Chief of Transportation Services, Brett Thorne, they have been working tirelessly on this program. Brett and his team will actually be overall managing this program and will be very active in the engagement along with our community engagement team on this. But they will be working with the our community engagement team and attending events and trying to raise awareness of the program and also one-on-one helping residents apply. Because we want to ensure that for those low-income qualified applicants that we are reaching them, they understand what the program is, how it benefits them, and that they understand how to apply. We're going to have extra outreach and partnership with some organizations and agencies to make sure we reach them in particular. Voucher recipients will be selected through a lottery process. So there will be a number assigned for the applications, and through a random number generation process, then those applications will be pulled, reviewed, and then approved. And once we reach that quota, then we'll know who all is approved. They will receive that notification via email, and once they are approved and notified, they can then go to those approved vendors for purchase of their e-bike. And so what is eligible? We are following Maryland law for this. So Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 e-bikes will be eligible for purchase so that people have an option for what is right for them. You can start with the Class 1 or go all the way through the Class 3 based on your type. If someone wants a basic bike versus a cargo bike where you want to be able to go grocery shopping or attach and tow your child along with you, whatever it is, you'll be able to have some different options there. The only concern or limit is that we have our voucher limits, so anything above those costs, the customer will have to pay the differences. Additionally, bike lots, helmets, and adaptive devices for persons with disabilities will also be eligible for purchase with the vouchers. So we wanted, again, like I said, target those businesses that are located in Baltimore City. And so we have worked with these vendors, Baltimore Bicycle Works, Trek Bicycle, and Joe's Bike Shop, to work through the agreement process, and we'll be presenting the grant agreements to this board. And so their agreements detail their responsibilities, our responsibilities, and how the program will work. We have established a voucher and customer verification process and redemption process to support this entire reimbursement process. We, of course, are working in coordination with the various city agencies to support us through this, like Department of Finance and BSIT. And like I said, any costs above the approved voucher amount are the responsibility of the customer. And of course, these vendors will be requiring that at time of sale. The really important thing is to look at the goals of this program, because this is something really positive for the city. And so our goal for DOT is to replace some driving trips with e-cycling trips, to reduce some greenhouse gas emissions, to increase e-bike ownership, particularly with some of our low-income residents, to encourage healthy, active lifestyles, and to increase transportation options for our Baltimore City residents. This, again, is a pilot. I know that the number of recipients is lower, the budget is lower, but we're going to be seeking feedback and to really assess how well this pilot works, and then we'll evaluate what happens in the future. But we're excited about rolling this initial pilot out and seeing how successful it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple quick questions. What's the source of the grant, like the $75,000?
It's general funds.
It's general funds. Why is it vendor specific? Why is it just with Trek?
So we searched for any and all Baltimore City. So that was the one thing. We wanted to focus on Baltimore City businesses. Additionally, we wanted to ensure that they had the ability to work with the customers and to provide maintenance. So just like with other things that you purchase, there's going to be a certain warranty period with something with the bikes. And so we want to make sure that if someone buys a bike, they're able to take it back to that shop and have maintenance performed on the bike and provide those services.
But say, for instance, Joe's, you can buy bikes that are on Trek, that are e-bikes. So I'm just wondering why it'd be one thing if Trek was providing this grant, like the $75,000, but why have we decided to do a pilot with city funds specific to this one e-bike vendor?
So these are the shops. We looked at all shops within Baltimore City that would be able to provide the services and provide e-bikes. So we weren't excluding anyone. We were looking for all that would participate.
No, I think, for a person that constantly pushes the importance of like dealing directly with local businesses, minority, women-owned businesses, totally agree with that and very supportive of that. I guess the concern I just have is we making this specific to Trek, and we providing Trek with like all of this branding and kind of part of this. So.
Here, you can go ahead. Yeah.
We're actually doing it with all three vendors in the city: Trek, Baltimore Bike Works, and Joe's Bike Shop. That's what. So our
brand of bike, not just Trek.
Yeah. Do you mean pull the presentation back up?
Yeah.
There
So
were
it's
the three
any band of
listed.
bike, not just. No. I saw the bike shops. That's what I'm saying. Joe's. You can go to Joe's and I can buy an
Yes.
e-bike that's not Trek.
Yes.
But I believe that it says it's specific to Trek, though.
No. It was just saying that that's the actual bike shop. It's not a specific brand. That's just the bike shop specifically.
The agreement is with Trek Retain Corporation.
And there's three agreements.
Yes, so it's only with each bike shop. So we're not specifying the brand. You have that option. So it's Joe's Bike Shop. There's going to be a grant agreement for each of those shops.
Do you guys understand my confusion? Why is it with Trek Retain Corporation and I can buy
So I think that-
Cannondale or I can buy something else?
Right. So we are contracting with three different bike shops, but I think that this item just came up on non-routine, but all three agreements are coming up now.
Got it. Okay.
His question is the language. It's just the terminology in the agreement for Trek specifically. So my understanding is that that's just the specific way that their business name is.
Yeah, for the Trek shop.
They're a
But that's-
brand.
But for the other two shops, Madam Director, you
Yes.
guys have another two items that
Yes,
just is
that
not
will
on
be
this
coming.
agenda.
Correct.
Somehow Trek is just kind of first.
Yes. So
Is that
as
what we're saying?
we
Okay, all right, now I feel
exactly.
better, all right.
So as we reached
Because
out
I'm a
to
Cannondale guy.
No, no,
You know,
no.
I'm so,
Yep.
show the other vendors some love, you know?
No, so we reached out to all the vendors.
Okay, all
and
right,
so
there we go.
Just like we reached out to people, some people respond quickly, some
All
people
right.
maybe not as quickly, and so we have to work through. So as soon as we got the yes, we're on board, we want to work with you, we started the grant agreement process. And
Gotcha.
so it's just this is the first one to come before the
And
board.
so eventually
the others are coming.
Joe and
Yes.
the other bike shop will come. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it. So crystal clear.
So this is the presentation for all three of them.
Okay, here we
So
go.
I won't be
All
doing
right.
this 3 times.
well, hopefully those things will be on routine. We don't have to do nothing.
Exactly,
All
yes,
right.
this
But
covers all of
This
those.
is actually a really great program. The only other last question I have, actually two, is it age restrictive?
It's-
You know, young folks in the city, bikes is part of growing up in Baltimore City. It's like your driver's license at the age of 10. I'm pretty sure the mayor knows all about that. So is it age restrictive? No. It's not age restrictive. And then is there prioritization for the low-income residents, or they're in the lottery just like everyone else?
They're in the lottery, but like I said, 50% is dedicated for the low income.
Okay, I missed
Yes.
it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns? Okay, thank you so much for making that crystal clear
Thank
for
you.
me today. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thanks so much, Madam Director. The next item on non-routine agenda can be found, it's a walk-on item. It's SB 24-13289, Mayor's Office of Homeless Services. This request is for general funds agreement with Time Organization Incorporated. On behalf of Mayor's Office of Human Services, we have, Homeless Services, we have Madam Director. You gotta press the button. Yep.
Good morning. This request, I apologize for the lateness of it. It is surrounding Time Organization. They provide 24/7 services for our emergency shelters. This one is to support the women's shelter location. So their services include case management, mental health, security, food, and anything else that you can possibly think of that you need to run an emergency shelter.
At this time, are there any questions or concerns for MOHS? Madam Deputy Comptroller, the floor is yours.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry. Just to clarify, I'm looking through my notes. Just to clarify, is it 130 beds or 145?
145 beds.
Okay. And what's the time period for the agreement?
7/1 through 6/30. 7/1/2024 through 6/30/2025.
Okay, and so the payment of back expenses is for what period?
7/1. So the payment would have, the provider began services on time. So they started on 7/1.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Madam Deputy Comptroller. Are there any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, it's a walk-on item. We take a motion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank
Thank you.
so much. The next item on non-routine agenda can be, it's a walk-on item again. It's SB 2413309, Baltimore City Health Department. This request is to approve provider agreements with University of Maryland. And actually, Madam Clerk, for the record, if we could put me down as an abstention on the last item, which was SB 2413289.
So noted.
All right, so that was 4 in affirmative, 1 abstention by me, and now we're moving on to 24-13309, and on behalf of the Health Department, we have
Mary Beth Haller, Interim Commissioner of Health. Honorable President and members of the BOE, this morning I'm actually bringing 3 contracts. We're starting with this one, but they are linked, and it's all for the same reason. So if you wish, I can give the general reasons as to why this is the case. I'm going to be referring to them collectively as the Ryan White contracts, therefore ending the HIV epidemic programs. So the first program, SB 24-13309 is with University of Maryland School of Medicine, Department of Pediatrics, the Pediatric Star Trek program. There are actually two contracts for this program. The first is to provide direct medical care for Ryan White eligible youth and young adults, and the second is to provide linkage to care coordinators, LGBTQ health navigators, sexual health peer navigators, and similar, all of this being with the goal to maintain viral load suppression, enhance linkage to care, and reduced HIV transmission. The third agreement, SB 24-13352, is an agreement with Johns Hopkins School of Nursing Center for Infectious Disease and Nursing Innovation. This is to provide technical assistance for the Getting to Zero Plus program. They provide training to performance sites and navigators, a resource bank, and implement the Community Aging in Place, Advancing Better Living for People with HIV, which is a home-based program for older adults to work with an occupational therapist and registered nurse to set goals and action plans to improve health, independence, and safety. The reason we're doing this walk-on request today is, first I'll explain the Ryan White funding has several parts. It begins with an initial award that is issued first, and then 4 to 5 months later, a second award is issued. When that initial award is received, the contracting process has begun, and our fiduciary agent did begin the contracting process on February 16th of 2024. On May 15th, BCHD received our final notice of award for FY24 from HRSA, which necessitated revisions to the contracts. Additionally, on May 29th, we received the final Ryan White Part B award from MDH, which confirmed a significant budget reduction by more than 70%. The fiduciary agent had initially agreed to continue to work on the ending the HIV epidemic, Ryan White, with the budget reduction, but once the final figures for the award were shared via the notice of award letter on July 2nd, 2024, the fiduciary agent requested significant revisions to the scope. Efforts to renegotiate the contract were unsuccessful, and on July 23rd, BCHD began the process of then entering into the FY24 contracts with the EHE subrecipients directly. BCHD also brought on administrative staff to assist with the execution of the contracts. On 8/14/24, HRSA informed BCHD that while they understood the circumstances that led to the termination of the fiduciary agent, that Baltimore would nonetheless be required to execute the contracts by September 13th, 2024. We worked diligently to meet the deadline for today's BOE. We were unable, we fell short. So we're requesting now the approval of these contracts. If they're approved today, we will have met the deadline.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. To the board, we're looking at this and we're going to vote on them all separately, but obviously we would like to keep the discussion in a collective format because I believe they are all presented to us in the same posture today. And that's 24-13309, 24-13308, and 24-13352. With that, are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on 24-13309.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on our routine agenda can be found. You have to stay, please. Mary Beth. We got to just formally go through the other two.
Sorry.
The next, we're going to read it on the record and then vote it on.
Got it.
The next item on our routine agenda is also a walk-on item, SB 24-13308, Baltimore City Health Department. This request is to approve provider agreements with the University of Maryland. On behalf of the city, we have
Mary Beth Haller, Interim Commissioner of Health, Baltimore City Health
Stand by your previous testimony?
Yes, I do.
This is different? No, that's not yet. No, I got you. At this time, are there any questions or concerns for the Health Department? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on our routine agenda can be found. It's another walk-on item, SB 24-13352, Baltimore City Health Department. This request is to approve a provider agreement with Johns Hopkins University School of Nursing. On behalf of the city, we have.
Mary Beth Haller, Interim Health Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And you stand by your previous testimony?
Yes, I do.
All right. Are there any questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, the board will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Abstain.
Please note that there's 4 affirmative, 1 abstention by our mayor, Mayor
So
Brandon
noted.
Scott. Madam Clerk, this item is approved. And I believe there's no new business before the desk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. As there's no new business before the desk of the board, we will adjourn at this time. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, September 18th at 9 a.m. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, we absolutely love you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the bid opening for the Board of Estimates for September 4th, 2024. I have a few addenda to share today and not about, exactly, 4 bid openings. So up first for addenda, these are changes to the opening dates. Bear with me just a second. Okay. For the Department of Public Works, WC 1413R, Lake Montebello and Montebello Washwater Lake Dredging. This item will now be opened on September 18th, 2024. And for the Department of Transportation, TR 24015, Urgent Need Contract Citywide. This contract bids will now be opened on September 18th, 2024. So up first today for opening is the Department of Public Works. This is contract SC 985, the rehabilitation of high-level interceptor.
We have no bids received.
And Abby has shared the bad news that we have no bids received today, so this item will be noted as such and returned to the agency. Up next, for the Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 000556. This is for home-delivered grocery boxes for city residents.
Right. You want the original, right?
So we have an original and 1 copy?
Yep.
Thanks.
The original, sorry. It's a,
All right.
what page?
That total is 3,150,000.00.
Okay, that bidder was Poulet N.A., doing business as Rouge Fine Catering.
That's correct.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you for the address, but first I'm going to read the number, 3,150,000.00.
That's correct.
Great. Can you give me the address for that one, Abby?
Sure. That's 11110 Pepper Road, Suite F/417, BENNINGHAUS Road, Hunt Valley, Baltimore, Maryland, 21031/21212.
Okay, got it. That bidder was Poulet N.A., Inc., doing business as Rouge Fine Catering, and the bid was $3,150,000.00. There's no check or anything associated with this bid?
No.
Okay. And was that our only bidder for RFQ?
That's correct. That was our only bidder.
000556? That was our only bidder for RFQ 556, home-delivered grocery boxes for city residents. Up next, we have for the Bureau of Procurement RFQ 000611. This is for building envelope and air sealing services for municipal buildings.
We have one bidder, USA Energy Company Incorporated. And this is itemized. We don't have a total.
Oh, so there's no total?
Mhm.
Okay. Let me note that, and I'll explain as usual. The bidder in this instance was USA Energy Company Incorporated, and because this is an itemized bid, we refer the bid, of course, to the agency to review the itemizations and the bid as a whole. So we cannot provide a total because we do not have one. And is that our only bidder? That is our only bidder for RFQ 000611, Building Envelope and Air Sealing Services for Municipal Buildings. And again, that single bidder was USA Energy Company Incorporated. Up next, for the Bureau of Procurement, we have RFQ 000571, Crime Scene Supplies. And
We have no bids received.
we have no bids received for RFQ 000571, Crime Scene Supplies. So that was our 5-minute bid opening for September 4th, 2024. Our next bid opening is September 18th, 2024 at noon, and we will see you all then. The results from this bid will be posted by close of business today, if not much, much sooner. And of course, the originals and complete packages are sent to the agencies for review. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thanks, team.